Welcome, everybody. It is the Wednesday edition of Talkback, brought to you by Selway Armory, located on Stockyard Road. More guns and ammo than anyone in Missoula, Montana's premier firearms dealer. Knife River Residential. Have them install new or repair your home's present asphalt driveway. Plan ahead for your spring projects by calling 532-5250. Missoula Nissan Hyundai. Drive the adventure in the big store on Brooks with the largest selection of Nissans in the state. Missoula's Office City, making your office their business. 1526 South Avenue West. All right, welcome everybody. It's Talk Back. John King over there. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
And one of our friends of our program, attorney Quentin Rhoades, joining us here in the studio. Quentin, good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you guys today?
Fabulastic.
Doing pretty good. The state of our union is
it's strong.
Almost the end of the week.
The state of our union is there's my wife's monster cookies in the kitchen.
And it's hump day.
That's right.
All right.
Well, hey, I have Quentin Rhoades in studio today because he's going to deliver a State of the Union for Missoula tonight. I was joking. We had a complaint filed on behalf of some taxpayers in Missoula. It gets kind of in the weeds really quickly because it does deal with how the Department of Revenue calculates taxes. But this is one of the things that a lot of people are looking at their tax receipts and they're thinking, what? This year seems to be quite out of the norm. And I read part of the complaint and I was just floored when you look at the amounts that some of the individuals you're representing were paying. Now, these people in the complaint are all commercial taxpayers in Missoula. Is that correct?
That's right. We had to make a decision just because of the number of property owners in Missoula County, what we wanted to focus on. And our focus became the commercial real property owners because in our study, it seems like they've been hurt the worst. And what do I mean by hurt is that the value of their property has gone up by the most. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that their tax bill has gone up by the most, although that does correlate. But the Department of Revenue calculates the value of your real property. It doesn't calculate how much tax you have to pay. That depends on your local jurisdiction. So we have school and county and city and SIDs, and there's just all kinds of things that go into calculating your actual bill. But with respect to the estimate of the value of your real property, that's taken care of by the Department of Revenue, state of Montana.
Yeah, school, county, city, it's like jab, hook, uppercut, pretty much. So when we're looking at our...
and then a roundhouse right.
When we're looking at the some of your complaints, though, give us a little bit of perspective on the numbers. In just 1 year, I saw an amazing difference in the property valuation.
Well, there are some shocking examples.
Now, before you do that, though, do they recalculate this every year, or is it 3 years, or what?
It's every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
And so prior to 2015, really prior to 2016, they recalculated every 6 years. And so basically what they tried to do was recalculate 1/6 of all the property every year, and then they had this rolling calculation. And that was reviewed by the courts, and the court said, it's supposed to be... there's supposed to be equal taxation of everybody. That's not, but it's not so bad that we don't have the resources to do it every year. So that's okay if you do it that way. So then the legislature changed the law in 2015, so that starting in 2016, this calculation was done every 2 years. And the consequence of that is the Department of Revenue has now 3 times the work every year, because they have to appraise 3 times as many properties as they did in the past.
So I interrupted you. You're about to start with some of the numbers. So.
Oh, sure. Well, the range of numbers that we have are people whose property has increased by 80% in value.
Increased by 80%?
That's right, in 1 year, from 2016 to 2017. So
wow.
But that's not the worst of it. 80%. That's the people on the low end. Our winner here is 461% in 1 year.
How do they justify that?
Well, it may be that they're just particularly shrewd real estate investors. But the problem is
okay.
that seems sort of unlikely. It seems to us that is a glaring error, and it happens across all of the city of Missoula. It happens outside the city of Missoula. It has happened in other counties as well. So we think that, I mean, the law says, there's a statute that says taxation has to be fair to all citizens. And one of our legal theories is that ain't fair.
Well, when you say it ain't fair, I mean, this is something that's in law, the way they're supposed to do it. I'm sure there's a system, there's guidelines for how they manufacture these numbers. What isn't fair about it, other than that it's more than you wanted it to be?
Well, there's a couple of things. First, if your property value increases 80% and your neighbor's goes up 461%, your neighbor has a pretty good argument that ain't fair. And there's
Did that happen? Are those
exactly
real percentages?
We have that range within our small set of plaintiffs. There's only a dozen people in it, and we have that range. Our low person's 80, our high person's 461. Wow. And so
now, someone who does this for a living, okay, people that do this every 2 years or every 6 years, they know they're supposed to know what they're doing. You would think that they do, and when they get these numbers and they look at them and they say, my goodness, it seems the property value has increased by 400% over the last 2 years. Well, is there any questioning of, did we get the numbers wrong? Did we double checks? What?
Well, I don't know that they would look at it on its face and just say that can't be right and recalculate. They have done adjustments when people have complained, and they haven't really justified those adjustments on objective criteria, except for, gee, that doesn't seem fair. and so the government's not supposed to work that way, is it? I mean, if you come in and complain and they adjust your taxes down, that's great for you, but it's not fair to everybody else unless there's some objective criteria they can point to and say, we made a mistake, you should have a lower tax bill. And the anecdotes that we've heard so far is that when people have gotten their assessment lowered, it's been on the basis of, that just doesn't seem right. And so, that's not fair to everybody else. So the problem here, I think, Peter, and this is an educated guess on my part, we haven't done the discovery, the lawsuit's just starting, but this law is new, right? This law came into effect on January 1st, 2016. So it's something new for the Department of Revenue to be administrating. And sometimes people make mistakes when things are new. They don't have any experience with how to do this. They don't have sufficient staff. If you look into how this was advocated for and argued for by people who know how to do this, they also said, frankly, that the Department of Revenue did not have the resources to do this on an annual or biannual basis. I mean, that's what they said. And so the point is that legislature, if you make this change, it'll be better, but you're going to have to devote more resources to the appraisal side of this in order for us to be able to get it right.
A couple of things. Let's say my property is valued at 400% more than it was 2 years ago, and I complain, and they say, "Oh, yep, you're right, we're wrong." Should that not embolden all the other adjacent property owners to say, whoa, clue me in. I want to be included on this. If you lowered his from 400% down to maybe 250%, then I deserve the same treatment. And if that happened, then wouldn't there be a rather large decrease in the amount of taxable funds available to services?
Well, I think there would, and I think it's too random. I mean, there needs to be a system for how this works. And if you indeed if your property is overvalued, it needs to be reduced on an objective standard. If your property is undervalued, it needs to be raised at an objective standard. And you can't point to a piece of property and say it was worth $1 million in 2016 and say that it's worth $3 million today. And that happened to people. And, that's just not objective. There's no way to justify that except for you could say, well, we were so wrong in the past and we finally got it right. But what credibility is there in that? There's no credibility in that either.
Okay, we're up against a break. 721-1290. If you have a question or comment, I know you do. Attorney Quentin Rhoades standing right here, willing to take your call and talk more about this.
Yeah, or if your taxes went up more than 400%.
You say,
beat the mark.
I can top that. We're going to come right back. My weight increased that much, but we'll be right back.
Thanks for calling KGVO. This is John. Hi, Ron. We'll get you on
Wow.
400%? Did they build something that wasn't there before? No.
You should see what's happened.
Did they remodel the kitchen?
Was that Scott's EQ muffler?
No, he's nowhere near that.
KGVO.
He had a lot.
John.
Which
one? Jocelyn.
Well, I guess you could listen to the Talkback show. That's all. Okay, we'll get you on if you have a question. What's your first name?
You sure it wasn't the office building where the mayor had his re-election?
Yeah, well, that went down.
Did it really?
You know who went down?
No.
Guess.
City Council?
Missoulian.
Yeah.
The Missoulian.
Did they?
Yeah.
Riverfront property went down?
Wow.
No, I can't say it went down. It increased by a lot less than everybody else. Everybody went up. I can't find anybody, and I've heard stories about people who say, "Well, my assessment." I know there are people whose taxes went down, but I don't know of anybody whose assessment went down.
Huh. Thanks for calling KGVO. This is John. Hey, Joe. We'll get you in the show. By the way, we are on video the whole time.
I'll stop picking
Even
my
during
nose
the
then.
break. You can pace all you want. I think they like watching that. Actually, we get lots of complaints. Why don't you guys sit down?
You guys moving around too much. You're making me dizzy.
We've
that pot too?
Nope, that's number 3.
you know the property that is where the Brook Street Montana Club,
Okay.
that went from like 700,000 to 2.5 million. I mean, it's just an incredible amount.
What?
And I'm just talking about land values, right? Because
Here we go.
I want to make sure that we're not confused.
All right, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. 1-800-568-5309. John King's over there. I'm Peter Christian. Attorney Quentin Rhoades joining us in studio. The lines are almost full. We also have a Facebook comment, John.
That's right.
Go ahead.
A couple comments. First, Sean says, we have the highest tax rate in the Pacific Northwest, next to King County in Washington. Elena says, paying your property taxes under protest is definitely a wake-up call for your so-called public servants. Crystal says, my taxes went up $60 just because we built a deck. Elena says, just whining about high taxes while paying it is like a parent unhappy with what his kid does with his allowance while handing the kid more money weekly. By the way, what's that 2016 code number Quentin mentioned? I think she's talking about the change to a new biannual Department of Revenue.
He's checking. He's checking right now.
Yeah, you know, it's entitled 15. It's 157111 is the specific code number where they've changed from 6 years to 2 on the reassessment.
Except for National Forest land.
Well, National Forest land doesn't pay taxes. The U.S. government does not pay the state of Montana for the value of its property. It's a difference between you and I and the U.S. government. We pay taxes on our property. The U.S. government does not.
They pay in lieu of taxes sometimes belatedly.
They sometimes pay belatedly in lieu of taxes, and but they don't pay property taxes, and they don't have to do anything. So that's a big difference. But when it comes to private forest land, that's still assessed every 6 years.
Okay, it's on the dog year schedule.
Let's get to the phones. Ron, thank you for holding. You're on with Attorney Quentin Rhoades. Hi.
Yeah. Good morning. I moved out of Missoula 10 years ago. At that time, I had a double wide trailer, and it was on a rented lot. Okay? It was in 1995. I would have been lucky to get $10,000 out of it. Lucky. Okay? And it was in good shape. That's just what they go for.
Now, you're talking about the mobile home or the lot or both together?
No, the mobile home. It was a rented lot.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. Anyway, so they assessed it at $42,000. All right. So protested, put in, for a reassessment. And so I got the reassessment, $37,500. So I gave it away, and I live out of Missoula now. So I wish you good luck, but I think you're just spitting in the wind.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thanks for the call. So
I heard from a song once, you're not supposed to do that.
yeah.
Well, a legal challenge to tax issues is always pretty dicey because the courts have ruled that the legislature has all the cards when it comes to setting tax policy. But when it comes to valuing real property, there's a constitutional provision that says that it has to be equalized across taxpayers. In other words, all taxpayers similarly situated have to be treated similarly. And so they can't have different systems, for example, in different counties. And that's why the Department of Revenue, the State Department of Revenue, does the assessment. They gotta use the same methodology across the state, and they gotta treat all commercial property similarly across the state. They can't discriminate against it because it's commercial in favor of residential. I mean, there are a lot of rules that are of constitutional origin on how the assessments can be done, and that's why we're focusing on the assessments.
Let me ask you this. So Missoula has had a lot of development recently, especially in the last 2 years. So when you're looking back at, for example, rebuilding of schools, et cetera, is it, and all the tax increment financing districts, the development at the mall, is it plausible to think that we should see an increase because of all the money that's being pumped into infrastructure?
Well, it's plausible, but if you look at it on a systematic basis, and we had a former economist from MSU, a professor from MSU, look at it this way, the property values in Missoula County have gone down. We have relatively low value property in Missoula County because we don't have any industrial property. Chiefly,
you trust a bobcat with your lawsuit?
Well, that in particular is not part of the lawsuit. Okay. I mean, we had that question, and but in fact, the property value in Missoula County has risen slower than the tax rate in Missoula County. But again, we're not challenging the tax rate. I mean, the voters have voted for representatives who've raised spending, and they've voted for initiatives or bonds that have raised spending, and they have that prerogative. But we think that the appraisers have to follow a different standard, and they have to be objective in the way they approach it. And I don't think you can look at these and think that they haven't made a mistake. It's clear that they have.
Let's take another call. Randy, thanks for holding. You're on Talk Back with Quentin Rhoades. Go ahead.
I have a commercial property here in town that I have rented out. I've owned it since 1994. It stayed pretty steady, a little bit of increase all the time, but not a lot. All of a sudden this year I got my appraisal and it went up over $100,000. And I did file, appeal the tax or the amount.
What part of town is your property in?
It's down on would be the south central. It's down off Russell between Orange, or down off 5th Street between Orange and Russell.
Okay. Now, is it primarily a commercial area, or are you surrounded by residential, or what?
It's pretty much surrounded by residential. I haven't changed anything. I've had basically the same. There's 2 little mobile home spaces and an older house and a shop. And they based my expense, they came up with the value based on what my tenant in my cabinet shop makes a year, not on what I make.
Okay.
Which was my biggest concern, was I don't make that much money, and they're basing the value of the property off of what the renter makes.
So if he was, dealing meth and making $1 million a month out of there, you'd be in big trouble.
Oh, you bet.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that is how you would judge a commercial property, is the amount of money that you can make from that property, right?
Yeah, but that I can make from it, not my renter makes from it.
Well, you could theoretically charge higher rent if they're able to make more money from your spot.
Well, yeah, but that's not what they based it off of, and I don't make higher rents. I make very little off of the whole property. I try and make it so that a person in this city can make a living at a reasonable amount instead of gouging.
Well, I think we should put you in charge over at the Montana Department. We got to take a break. Thanks for your call, and best of luck to you. Joe and Mike, we'll get you on in a moment. Stay with us.
Well, one of the things that you get when you complain about your tax bill.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
One of the things you get when you complain about your tax bill is you get a response from the city. Blame the county. The county says blame the city. They both say blame the taxpayers or the voters, or they say blame the Department of Revenue. You know, so there's not a central.
Just follow the pointing fingers
Exactly.
back around.
But when that comes to your tax bill, and there's nobody you can point at and say, you screwed this up. They all have somebody to point at. But what we're talking about is the appraisal of the land. And there's somebody who's responsible for that. It's Department of Revenue, and they can't pass a buck. And
Thanks for calling KGVO.
you know,
This is John.
It's going to have an effect on your tax bill if your property goes up 4 or 5%.
Now, have you talked to Cadis about this, or would that even be in his bailiwick? Because it's his department.
It's his department. We
Yeah.
have talked to local appraisers. We're focusing on
Yeah. Well, you would think, being a former mayor of Missoula, you might have a little bit of a more.
They're not very accurate, and it depends on the region.
Oh.
Montana version is not
Okay,
very
that's-
accurate because they don't have access to
We'll wait and see on that.
MLS data.
We won't get
But
to
in other counties, it's more accurate.
Tell you what, I'm going to get rid of these PSAs and go back into the program. early. We have
If I
two
were to
callers.
actually appeal, I would get a real assessment from a broker or from a appraiser. Yeah.
Okay, talk back rolling right along on this Wednesday. We're talking with attorney Quentin Rhoades, and we have another caller on the line. Let's go ahead and get, I believe this is Joe. Joe, thank you for holding, sir. You're on.
I just heard on KUFM this morning about the realtors hiring a specialist to investigate the cost of housing in Missoula. They just came out with their study.
Yeah,
And of course
that was released yesterday over at the Holiday Inn. Yeah, the affordability study.
Well, it didn't seem to me that they discussed property taxes, which is the elephant in the tent, but I wonder why your guest wasn't invited to be a part of that group. He probably would have showed up for free, maybe. But anyway, yeah, it's I guess that says it all right there. I have brought up the idea of paying appreciation at the time of sale in the past, and I don't know where that's going, but I have heard that Proposition 13 in California was comparable to that concept. Anyway, how do we doing the obvious thing, which would be to reduce the cost of running a property, would be too obvious. But they say that they're looking for the role of government, to play in our housing market. That government has a role, but what they could do is just cut our taxes.
All right, thanks for the call. So, Quentin, your response.
Yeah, we've got at least one instance that we can point to where some folks had a duplex next to a vacant lot, and the duplex was reappraised, and their tax bill went up $8,000 a year. So they've got 2 tenants, and each of those tenants is going to see an increase of $4,000 per year in their rent for their home. So you divide that by 12 and see how much that is a month for the tenants. Affordability of housing is something that is going to have to address this problem. If you raise the rent on a residence $4,000 a year, you may well lose that tenant, and that tenant's lifestyle is going to change a lot if they have to take $4,000 that they would have saved or spent on college or whatever they would have done with the $4,000, and now increase their rent by that much. It's going to have an effect on affordability.
So, do we know how much the taxes went up statewide? And is Missoula County out of the norm? And are your residents specifically in Missoula County out of the norm from that? Because you had mentioned a spread of like 80% to 400% increase.
Well, it's important to remember that what we're talking about is the assessment. But in Missoula County, one of the things we studied is, have taxes gone up in Missoula County, and have they gone up more than other counties? And both is true. Missoula County is the winner in both the increase in tax and the amount of tax. Missoula County has always been a high tax county, but it's also increasing faster than its brother and sister counties, and no surprise there.
Okay, let's get one more call in before we have to take our final break and say good morning to Don. Hi, Don.
Good morning, guys.
What's up?
Always great listening to you. A couple comments. Last night I was at a meeting, and another city council person was there, and was saying how in their meetings they were saying Missoula is 2 years away from being considered a resort city, kind of like Sun Valley, Aspen, where it's too pricey for the common average person to exist. So I'm actually drafting some notes about that the whole thing goes around the taxes. You keep raising the taxes as you're discussing about businesses, and they don't pay it out of their pocket. It comes into their pricing, and whether it's rent, whether it's the food, and so forth, it just gets more expensive, and then they've got to raise it more. So it's just a spiral. They need to stop raising the taxes.
All right, thanks for your call. And unfortunately, we are out of time. So we're going to take a quick break and come right back after the top of the hour news.
2 years away. My understanding is that state law has resort designation only if you make like 40% or 30% of your income off of tourism.
Yeah.
There's no way we're that high.
No, Bozeman wouldn't even be close to that.
Well, I mean, the bigger your city, the harder it is to function on tourism.
Right.
So the less likely it is that you're actually a resort.
Whitefish even?
Yeah, they fought for it. I don't know if they got approved.
They're
or
a
not.
pretty big town for that. I mean, it's like West Yellowstone.
But
Well, I do that they have a resort tax. So
if you're right outside of a national park, I mean, the likelihood is higher.
well, what the comment I was going to make about the people that had to raise their rents by $400 a month while the tenants move out, and since apartments are so hard to find right now, they'll have that filled in less than a week. I mean, it doesn't matter what the rent is. Someone will rent it.
Yes, they are considered a resort tax. They have a resort tax, but they put it in 1995. I don't know if it was different set then.
Yeah, that's $334 a month. So.
Increase. Wow. Holy crap. That's just outrageous.
Well, you want to kick around for a few minutes and segue out?
Sure. Okay. The I should send you that study that
Yeah, who is it? Okay.
I have a BS in economics from MSU from 80, whatever it was, 89.
I thought the lawyers in the state were Grizzlies, but now
I
know.
I got a degree from a JD from Montana. So,
Sure. So you're a hybrid.
Yeah, I got
or a half.
Well, I got two.
Okay.
I got 2 degrees from MSU and 1 from U of M. So I'm definitely mixed blood.
Okay.
But
What are your degrees from MSU?
I got a BS in economics and a master's in history.
Wow. Go Quentin, go.
Got all these,
And then a JD here.
and then a JD here. That's my first terminal degree.
Good for you.
Lawyer couldn't get one as an
As
You
a
know,
historian
theoretical,
of
right?
of economy.
Constitutional law of the pre-Civil War United States.
Wow.
Was that your focus?
Yeah. Constitutional history.
You got that history degree from MSU?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. You were probably taking classes when Rob was teaching here.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. He was my real estate professor.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He taught con law after I was out of there.
Oh, okay.
She was sucking her teeth. Did you see her
Oh, Pelosi?
doing that last night? It was like she was sucking on a lemon. Hilarious.
It's awkward to sit there and try not to be, because you know the cameras are flashing to you
Oh, absolutely.
every time there's an applause line, and they're just getting you. I am soulless.
I am Grump. Here we
wanna
were.
look unpleasant, but not dissatisfied, but not upset, but angry, but
I am respectful but silent.
yeah, that's tough set. And honestly, the speech was really long.
Yeah, it was very.
I got home last night at, I think it was before 10, and I was like, oh, I'll sit down and watch the State of the Union. I'm like, it's almost midnight.
It started at 7.
I know. Well, I watch online. I don't
Oh,
have
yeah.
a TV.
Okay, fine. Whatever. Millennials. What are you going to do with it? They want everything now, right when I want it.
I want it when I want it.
You know, I haven't had a TV for about 10 years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So you're the reason my Dish Network bill is so high. Huh? Thanks a lot. I have to reset my my Joey about once every week.
What's a Joey?
It's
I mean, besides the little like baby
yeah, exactly.
in
It's
your
called
pouch.
it's called the Hopper, and it's called a Joey, and it sends the signal down to where our TV is.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every now and then it'll go, I just don't feel like playing right now. So I have to go upstairs and reset that, and then reset.
I bet it's like a fake device. They're just charging you.
Yeah.
You need a Hopper and a Joey and a Zoopaloo.
Yeah.
And don't forget the Billabong.
and they use it to manipulate your service, like the iPhone. They slow it down.
Oh
so
yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
Oh well, maybe I need to pay more.
Especially when my wife insists on getting the Hallmark channel for all those stupid Christmas movies, and now it's Valentine movies. It's like, no! Oh, but they're just so sweet.
They are so sentimental. And
Whatever.
sweet.
Whatever.
Just like me.
Okay. Now she's hooked on When Calls the Heart.
Medical show, right?
No. I wish. I'm speaking to you from my gallbladder. And we are back. Hour number 2 of Talkback is underway, brought to you by Knife River Residential, Selway Armory, Missoula Nissan Hyundai, Missoula's Office City, and by Farside Sign. We had to leave kind of a little prematurely because we're up against a break, but we just wanted to say thank you to Quentin Rhoades, maybe wrap up a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. So we've been talking about, I guess you'd call it a tax protest, a complaint filed against the Montana Department of Revenue for commercial properties here in the city of, or the county of Missoula.
Right.
My question for you is there any potential relief for residential property taxes?
Well, I think so. If we show that the method of mass appraisal that was undertaken for the commercial property was flawed, I think you'll find the same flaw for residential property. And this is sort of for going forward. You don't benefit from the specifics of this lawsuit unless you paid your taxes under protest. And you have to be a commercial owner to benefit directly from this so that your bill will go down for 2017. But that's really not the aim here. What the aim is to ensure that going forward on this new system of reassessment every 2 years, that it's accurate and fair and equal.
Now, you had mentioned that you have a discovery process to go through, and I assume this isn't like going out in the woods and running around naked or something. You're going to try to find information.
It depends on the attorneys, but
and which law school they went to.
So what exactly are you trying to discover here?
Well, we want to have an explanation for why a property might go up in value by 80% in 1 year, or 200%, or 461%. And we think on its face that's not fair among the taxpayers, and they're required to be fair among the taxpayers. And so, they undertake this mass appraisal process, and they use computer algorithms to do that. And, we want to understand how it is that works and how it could be that your property could increase in value by 461% in 1 year.
So you're going to go yell at the computer algorithm, like, how lower my taxes? I mean, what exactly is going to happen then?
Well, we're going to examine the mass appraisal process that they used and the computer program that they used and how they changed it. I mean, this is new. We haven't had this kind of increase in 1 year before. So what were the changes and how did they affect it, and why have you done it this way?
And somebody had to program HAL, you got to remember, right? So you could yell at them.
HAL is an artificial intelligence leader.
It's another example of how artificial intelligence is not going to take over the world. This whatever they've done here is wrong, and they need to fix it.
It's taking over our paychecks. I don't know.
I'm hip. All right. Well, Quentin, thanks so much for coming by. We sure appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, as always. Thank you.
Our pleasure. All right. Now, John and I had a chance to catch most of the State of the Union speech last night, but because I get here at dark 30, I had to go to bed.
It was a long
Yeah,
speech.
it was very long. And, of course, the president's style of speaking is rather slow and languorous. You know, he just kind of rolls through each sentence. And then, of course, there was lots of applause and lots of grumpy stares and grimacing and that sort of thing, which was the most fun, actually. I wish they just had one camera on Nancy Pelosi throughout the whole speech. That would have been really fun.
Pelosi came.
But she definitely was sucking on lemons most of the night. But anyway.
Well, yeah, so I did notice, by the way, because I go through and I edited a lot of the sound bites that you'll hear today on the State of the Union. What was like a 6-minute bit when I took the clapping down or out completely.
10 seconds.
Yeah, it goes down in time a lot. So that is, I mean, other than where it starts and where it stops, the editing that I've done on these little bits is mostly to take out the clapping or reduce it significantly.
Right.
I think probably can you play SOTU 1, which is about
yes,
America,
the new American moment. All right.
This is probably kind of like his thesis statement.
All right, here we go. This is President Donald Trump from last night.
This, in fact, is our new American moment. There has never been a better time to start living the American dream. So to every citizen watching at home tonight, no matter where you've been or where you've come from, this is your time. If you work hard, if you believe in yourself, if you believe in America, then you can dream anything. You can be, and together we can achieve absolutely anything.
He's clapping himself there. Thank you. I'm great. Thank you very much.
Tonight, I want to talk about what kind of future we're going to have and what kind of a nation we're going to be. All of us together as one team, one people, and one American family can do anything. We all share the same home, the same heart, the same destiny, and the same great American flag.
I didn't cut the clapping on this one.
Together, we are rediscovering the American way. In America, we know that faith and family, not government and bureaucracy, are the center of American life. The motto is, "In God we trust." And we celebrate our police, our military, and our amazing veterans as heroes who deserve our total, unwavering support.
You can segue out of that.
Okay, there we go.
So anyway, the speech, as we mentioned earlier, goes for quite a long time.
Oh,
he
yeah.
hit a number of notes. We'll play a couple highlights. I want to play a soundbite a little bit after the break here, featuring his discussion on immigration, one that talks about what he plans to do this year. His big push was to do infrastructure. And then maybe his little jab at the NFL.
That was classic. We're going to come right back. More of Talk Back. By the way, if you have an impression, not of Donald Trump, not do your impression of Donald Trump, but if you have an impression of the speech and
if you're good at
how you can, I've tried to do. I can't do Trump. I can kind of do Obama because he sounds a little bit like Yogi Bear, but
hey, boo-boo.
and I do a wicked Bill Clinton. Yeah, but that's not relevant anymore. So anyway, 721-1290 is our number. We'll be right back.
Missed my joke.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, I think that's the only version of Bill Clinton you get.
The irrelevant version.
No, well, the wicked version.
see if what's his name is going to be appearing today.
The guy Newhoff. He might go to federal.
Yep, there it is, right there. He'll be appearing at 2:30. I will be there for that. Because right now they got him in jail on $200,000 bond, so he can't get out. Get out.
I asked them if he had a weapon on him when they found him.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear. PJ didn't have an immediate answer.
Oh, yeah. It's a rocket down the highway here on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. Of course, also make your comments on our Facebook page, and we are live on Facebook. So if you're sitting at home or someplace where you're not driving and you can and you can watch Facebook, you can look at us waving and looking silly. Anyway, our number is 721-1290. You have some more from the SOTU.
Yeah, so I think probably the boy from Redding, California, who made an effort to try to put flags on the graves of veterans.
Right.
And anyway, Trump talks about Preston, who, by the way, is sitting next to Melania in the auditorium. If you're listening right now, so,
right.
That's kind of the scenario that he starts with, and then he gets a little bit into the NFL at the end here.
Here we go.
Here tonight is Preston Sharp, a 12-year-old boy from Redding, California, who noticed that veterans' graves were not marked with flags on Veterans Day. He decided all by himself to change that and started a movement that has now placed 40,000 flags at the graves of our great heroes. Preston, a job well done. Young patriots like Preston teach all of us about our civic duty as Americans. And I met Preston a little while ago, and he is something very special that I can tell you. Great future. Thank you very much for all you've done, Preston. Thank you very much. Preston's reverence for those who have served our nation reminds us of why we salute our flag, why we put our hands on our hearts for the Pledge of Allegiance, and why we proudly stand for the national anthem.
All right, yeah, that the applause and the hooting went for quite a while there. The other big moment, I think the one that will have the most lasting impact will be his push to get an infrastructure bill.
Right.
This is apparently his. He made a passing mention at healthcare. He talked about getting rid of the individual mandate on the Affordable Care Act. I think he mentioned Obamacare, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But that was most of what he said. So I don't, from the tenor of the SOTU, I don't see a lot of focus on healthcare reform.
I don't either.
But I did hear this pitch to spend a bunch of money on infrastructure. Here we go.
All right, here we go.
As we rebuild our industries, it is also time to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. America is a nation of builders. We built the Empire State Building in just 1 year. Isn't it a disgrace that it can now take 10 years just to get a minor permit approved for the building of a simple road? I am asking both parties to come together to give us safe, fast, reliable, and modern infrastructure that our economy needs and our people deserve. Tonight, I'm calling on Congress to produce a bill that generates at least $1.5 trillion for the new infrastructure investment that our country so desperately needs. Every federal dollar should be leveraged by partnering with state and local governments and, where appropriate, tapping into private sector investment to permanently fix the infrastructure deficit, and we can do it. Any bill must also streamline the permitting and approval process, getting it down to no more than 2 years and perhaps even 1. Together, we can reclaim our great building heritage. We will build gleaming new roads, bridges, highways, railways, and waterways all across our land. And we will do it with American heart, American hands, and American grit.
All right. Final cut. This is probably the most emotional moment of the night.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be hard for you to pick up on the emotion because you can't see the video. But while Trump is talking, the camera focuses in on two couples,
right?
Two African-American couples, both of whom lost daughters. And Trump is describing what happened to their daughters in the clip, which the fact that they're crying and it is a tense emotional moment. And it's dealing with immigration, which is usually something the president talks about in a, I don't know, kind of a antagonistic way,
right?
You know, like you know, they're killing our kids or whatever. Now, when you see the faces of people who've actually suffered from a loose immigration policy, it adds a little bit of a more depth to it.
We're almost up against a break, so I want to give this plenty of time. But what I did notice, and we'll take a break and come back and listen to it. What I did notice is as he began to introduce the subject about immigration, you could begin to hear some of the rah, 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 protesting out in the audio. I heard some people beginning to shout or whatever, like they were protesting what he was going to talk about. And then he turned it to the parents of these suffering parents, and all of a sudden there was a complete hush in the audience. So anyway, so we'll come right back, and we'll take this break, come back. This is very, very emotional, especially if you watched it last night. You'll be able to relive the moment. We'll be back. I thought that was very deftly handled, by the way, because as soon as he began to talk about immigration and MS-13 and all this kind of stuff, you could hear some rumblings in the Democratic side. People were going to stand up or do something. And then he turned it over there, these grieving parents, and everybody went down like that. It was really something.
Oh, wow.
We'll be going over to the university at 11:30 for a presser with the new president. And then I'll go to the court appearance at 2:30. That is, if he appears. I'll be honest with you, I was really pleased with the speech. I thought he was not overblown. He was measured. He wasn't preening, and there was a little bit of preening when he'd stick that jaw out there and turn to give the profile view and that sort of thing, but I don't know. And there wasn't a whole lot of substance. There was a lot of style and Yahoo and hooray and all that kind of stuff. But I would say most State of the Union messages are not long on content. So
yeah, there's been some long ones. I remember watching one of the Obama era ones that was just forever. It was an hour and 20 minutes long.
Yeah. Well, do you remember when? Gosh, who was it that when President Obama talked about the Supreme Court and one of the justices said that's a lie or something like that?
No, he mouthed it.
Wait, did he mouth it? Okay. Okay.
I think it might have been. No, that wasn't. I can't remember who that was. It was a representative. It wasn't a.
You sure? I thought it was a Supreme Court justice. Thanks for joining us on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. And let's go to the tape. And this is the cut that John had just mentioned a moment ago about addressing MS-13 and the two grieving sets of parents who were there in the audience.
For decades, open borders have allowed drugs and gangs to pour into our most vulnerable communities. They've allowed millions of low-wage workers to compete for jobs and wages against the poorest Americans. Most tragically, they have caused the loss of many innocent lives. Here tonight are two fathers and two mothers, Evelyn Rodriguez, Freddie Cuevas, Elizabeth Alvarado, and Robert Mickens. Their two teenage daughters, Kayla Cuevas and Nisa Mickens, were close friends on Long Island. But in September 2016, on the eve of Nisa's 16th birthday, such a happy time it should have been, neither of them came home. These two precious girls were brutally murdered while walking together in their hometown. 6 members of the savage MS-13 gang have been charged with Kayla and Nisa's murders. Many of these gang members took advantage of glaring loopholes in our laws to enter the country as illegal, unaccompanied alien minors and wound up in Kayla and Nisa's high school. Evelyn, Elizabeth, Freddie, and Robert, tonight everyone in this chamber is praying. Everyone in America is grieving for you. Please stand. Thank you very much. I want you to know that 320 million hearts are right now breaking for you. We love you. Thank you. While we cannot imagine the depths of that kind of sorrow, we can make sure that other families never have to endure this kind of pain. Tonight, I am calling on Congress to finally close the deadly loopholes that have allowed MS-13 and other criminal gangs to break into our country. We have proposed new legislation that will fix our immigration laws and support our ICE and Border Patrol agents. These are great people. These are great, great people that work so hard in the midst of such danger so that this can never happen again.
All right. Well, let's move to thoughts. And if you had an opinion on it, I will be playing Mr. Kennedy's speech. Also, I have some Michael Moore. There was a People's State of the Union the day prior.
Right.
in where all the people live in New York, by a bunch of rich, privileged people.
Yeah.
Mostly celebrities.
Okay.
Anyway, we'll go into that a little bit too. But I do want to get your take on the State of the Union, Peter. I know you had a pretty strong opinion when I walked in.
I thought it was very well done. He did not bluster as he often does, like during the debates. That there was a lot of bluster going on. There was a lot of almost bullying. He seemed very very measured. He seemed very in control. There wasn't a lot of what I call preening that he would do when he was doing his public appearances around the country. But there was as the real applause really started rolling. He did that thing where he turned profile and jutted his chin way up, like he's being very, very proud. And I guess that's okay. That's just him. That's just Donald Trump being Donald Trump.
I feel like he's posing for a quarter.
Yeah. That could be. Could be. All right.
I don't know.
So let's get your thoughts. See what you thought. Emmett, good morning. You're on Talkback. Hi.
Oh, yeah, this is Emmett. Well, it's fascinating, Peter, that you just laid out, in a sense, my opinion on Donald Trump's, State of the Union address, but in a different way. What you considered the highlights, the good things about his speech, that he was measured, he didn't bluster, he wasn't going off on tirades, is why I was disappointed in this speech, actually.
More fireworks.
Hello?
You want more fireworks, huh?
Yes. This wasn't the same bluster, fireworks, and screaming in anger and pounding the table that I was hoping Donald Trump would say. I wish one of these presidents, one of these days, would come on and say, well, I love this country and our nation, the state of our union is a mess, and list all the evil things that are going on in society and say, I'm going to fix it this way, this way, this way. I'll admit, though, it was a lot better than any of President Obama's State of the Union addresses. Those could put coffee to sleep.
Well, yeah, President Obama, because he was a professor, and it was like all of his State of the Union addresses were lectures, like
exactly.
And after a while, when you're being lectured, you tend to snooze.
Now, let me ask you this. This is the criticism I saw before the speech.
Right.
One of the commentators I was reading said, "Tonight, will we see teleprompter Trump or Twitter Trump?" And I get the feeling for those that were hoping for Twitter Trump that they saw teleprompter Trump.
Well, here's something interesting. He did not send a single tweet 24 hours before or immediately after the State of the Union address. He was tweetless, basically.
You know this how?
Because
you're on Twitter?
No.
Well,
I am on Twitter, actually, and I follow Donald Trump. So
really? I didn't know that.
He did not issue a tweet, and the reason, according to some of the commentators, was because he didn't want to take away from the power of the message from the speech last night. So
I got to go look at the Twitter account of Trump.
Yeah. I wonder, though, if he's kind of getting burnt out on being a president, if he's just kind of dispirited, because all of the Democrats sat on their hands and glared at him, and the Republicans gave him kind of tepid applause. I wonder if he's getting burnt out and discouraged. I couldn't blame him.
I don't think so. I think that he's just getting fired up because I'm wondering he probably will be a one-term president. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I think what he's trying to accomplish, get all the stuff he promised people that he would do done in 4 years, and it's going to be it's going to be a gargantuan, a Herculean, if you will, type of effort. And if he can get people to go along with him, like he did with the tax cut, which took an enormous amount of political capital, there's much that can be done, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, interesting.
Right. Thanks, Emmett.
Thank you.
Thanks for the call. All right, we're up against a break, and Harry and Charles, I want to give you guys plenty of time to make your point and not rush you, so we'll take a quick break, come right back. We have 2 lines open. What was your opinion of the State of the Union address, or just did you watch When Calls the Heart?
That was on the Hallmark Channel?
Well, that's you. My wife has those on the DVD.
Something tells me you watched
the DVR.
When Calls the Heart.
No. I was the State of the Union guy. Well, but I can tell you what happened. But
by the way, I did look up the Trump Twitter feed 14 hours ago. He posted, "Watch me live." On, giving the State of the Union.
Well, there you go. All right, we'll be back with Harry and Charles in a moment.
Thanks for calling KGVO. This is John. Good, Mike. Bro, yo, robots.
Okay, thanks for joining us on the Wednesday edition of Talkback. I'm Peter Christian. That is John King on lead guitar. Ow! All right. Sorry. I get carried away when I play the Doobie Brothers. Okay, let's get back to the phones. Harry, thank you for holding, sir. You're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. To me, it shows that he can read the prompter pretty good. I mean, he's done it before where he was stayed with the prompter and he sounds fairly coherent and all that. But he's still good at fear mongering. I mean, with the MS-13. I mean, we've never had any violent gangs up here until we had all these inmates. Immigrants. I know that, but also that's MS-13. I believe someone may correct me on this, but I believe it's actually started in Los Angeles and it was exported down to Central America, along with the during the drug trades, and then it just gathered strength through that. So I may be wrong, but I believe that's how it started. So
I've heard a similar legend that it was Los Angeles started and then it kind of got deported, then back exported, then imported, and it's moved around.
Yeah.
But
this idea that if it wasn't for the immigrants, we wouldn't have these violent gang members and all that. It's nice fear mongering, but it's not quite true. But it's typical. I mean, you got to drive the base, make everybody afraid of the immigrants.
Now, let me ask you this. So Kamala Harris said something similar. She said, quote, to equate dreamers with MS-13 and criminal gangs was completely irresponsible. How did you hear him associating those two things?
Well, he's talked about MS-13, that he's talking about immigrants, how we got to stop the borders to stop all these violent immigrants. I mean,
if you have do you believe that violent people are abusing our borders and coming in or not? Does that happen?
Oh, I'm sure there are. I mean, obviously not a heck of a lot.
In Montana, we're affected by meth trafficking.
Yeah,
these are not gentle souls trafficking it up and we know where the meth is coming from.
Yeah, right now, but I mean, even if we could cut off the meth coming from Mexico, there's a guy making meth in the parking lot in Kmart. So
yeah,
I mean,
he got caught. It's much harder to do in the United States.
Yeah, right now, but it's okay. Well, the idea of putting up a wall ain't going to keep the drugs out, huh?
okay, you just agreed with me though on a number of points.
Oh, there's some, yeah, of course.
Okay, so if you could agree with that, you could agree with Trump that we have a problem that can be alleviated. I'm not saying we're going to
really
solve it.
I don't think it's a problem. It's
you don't
a fact.
think violence and meth addiction is a problem?
Yeah, but it's not coming from the immigrants. We had meth addiction before there was the immigrant thing.
Okay, is the meth being legally trafficked through the border?
No, but
okay, then we have a problem.
No, but it is not a problem.
Can be fixed by better controls on the border.
You're equating the meth problem with the coming from the south.
I've talked to multiple state officials. They know where the meth is
coming from.
They're coming from super labs in Mexico.
Right now, yeah.
Hello?
If you stop off, they can do it anywhere else.
Do you want to know why they're coming from super labs in Mexico?
Right.
Because they come and kill everybody else that's making it.
Right now,
yeah. Well, for crying out loud, Harry.
But it's not the border problem because it's like we could build a wall around the whole country like a prison. Guess what? Prisons have drugs in them. So I mean, it's idea that.
Okay. I've yelled at you enough. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be angry.
Right.
But hold on. Now let me ask you. What is your solution?
I mean, I don't think building a wall is a solution. That's throwing $25 billion at nothing.
What is your solution? We know what you're against. I want to know what you're for.
Okay, make me dictator of the world, and I'll stop it. I mean, how do you stop stuff like that? You can't.
Here's my point. I agree with you. You're never going to solve all drug crime or all violence, and there's no way that our immigrant situation is the lead cause of violence in the United States. Although I will say that meth addiction and the plague of meth has been a leading cause of problems for Montana recently.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I think it is a lot harder. In fact, I know it's a lot harder to develop meth in Montana or even in Canada than it is in South America and Central America.
Right.
And so it is irresponsible and ignorant to say that better policing of the border would not curtail some of the suffering that American families are facing right now.
Not all of it, but at least some of it.
I don't think so because it's a demand.
Okay,
supply and demand.
You agreed with me on every point.
If you have demand, it doesn't matter.
Yes, it does matter.
No, it doesn't.
If you have a high demand, but you can't get supply because it's harder to create, you're going to have less people.
Now, Harry, did you hear the report I did with the Highway Patrol the other day?
No, I didn't.
Okay, well, they have 6 new interdiction teams on the highways around Montana right now with canines and federal officers, and they're all working together. Anyway, in the last 6 months, they have legally obtained from these pushers and whatever people driving across the highways 56 pounds of methamphetamine. 56 pounds in 6 months. Now, that's probably a drop in the bucket to the amount of that's actually going through, but they're actually running out of room to store it. And the comment that the gentleman, Lieutenant Sanderson said, he said, the reason we're doing this is the more we drive up, we eliminate the product, the price will go up, demand will have to go down because people can't afford to buy it.
Well, the thing is that the drug dealers are very
very ingenious.
Yeah, and they'll figure out other ways to do it. I know they cut out the ephedrine whatever from stores. Well, they can cow medications they can wheel it down and make it. I mean, so it's like it's a whack-a-mole.
Well, Harry,
you hit it here, it pops up there.
Well, we're going to keep whacking. Harry, thanks for the call,
all
man.
right.
All right, so Charles, we're going to get you on in a minute. And we have Mike waiting to visit with us, 721-1290. Gosh, it's a spirited discussion here. Okay, we're going to come right back after a quick timeout, so stay with us.
I love it. I have Aaron Flint on line 4.
Oh, cool.
I want to try to do our 2 shows live at the same time.
Oh, that'd be great.
Hey, yes, Aaron, I am here. How are you doing? Well, we're having a lot of fun. We're talking about immigration and Trump's SOTU last night, and having a little bit of a fight over whether or not curbing meth trafficking in Montana would be beneficial with some of our callers. But, that's a regular day on Talkback. Right now, we're on a commercial break, but we are going live here in about 5 seconds.
Okay, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. 1-800-568-5309. And I understand that our friend Aaron Flint is on line 4.
Yeah.
All right, Aaron Flint, good morning.
Hey, Peter, Christian, what's going on there?
Hey, congratulations on your new gig, man.
Hey, thanks. Well, we've enjoyed having your newscast inside of the program here as well.
You know, I can barely hear you, so can you jack up the volume a little bit there?
You might have to do it on your phone end there.
Yeah, it's a little complicated because we're live on 2 stations simultaneously right now. Well, we just wanted to call in and say good morning and congratulations on the new program, Aaron.
Well, hey, thank you very much. We've been having a fun morning, getting calls from across the state, but yeah, this is fun, and it's great to be on a sister station. You guys do such a great program there, KGVO Talkback in Missoula. So
hey,
this is fun.
This is Daniel Zolnikov. I'd like to get on your guys' show.
Hey, I talked to you a couple weeks ago, Daniel. You're welcome anytime.
I appreciate that, man. We got to do it in person.
All right, well, get over here.
All right, guys, thanks so much, and best of luck, Aaron.
Hey, thanks, appreciate it.
Take care. Take care, buddy. All right, so, let's get back to our callers. Let's get Charles on. Good morning, Charles. You're on Talkback. Hi.
Hi there.
What's up?
You know, I can understand why the Democrats would be dejected and so forth when Trump talks about a wall, because they look at that as keeping potential voters out of the country, where I look at it as if you don't have the wall, when you convict and kick these people out, they just come right back in, and it's terrible. But anyway, how come they're so melancholy, so sad, so depressed at everything, almost everything? And you saw when the camera panned over towards the Democrat side, they were just there, no happiness, no joy at the best news there was.
That's because their candidate didn't win. And so when President Obama did his State of the Union address, there was a lot of focus on the Democratic side, and then the camera would pan over to the Republicans, and there'd be a lot of grumpy faces there. So it all depends on who's in office.
Well, okay, but I say this, that attitude there was a metaphor for the Democratic Party's actions at the present time, where it's not really searching for these wonderful goals that are happening, like black employment. Shouldn't they be so happy that that's at a record low? But they're focusing on one thing: to bring Trump down, the sooner the better.
Well, thanks for your call.
Appreciate the call. Thank you very much.
I do want to play. I think now's a great time to actually play the response to the State of the Union. This is the short straw gig. If you're
all right.
This is, although I must say, Mr. Kennedy did a pretty good job. It looked like a full crowd. I mean, I think the setting was better than we've seen in some of the past responses to the State of the Union.
All right.
Here's basically the thesis of his pitch.
That promise is being broken by an administration that callously appraises our worthiness and decides who makes the cut and who can be bargained away. They're turning American life into a zero-sum game, where for one to win, another must lose, where we can guarantee America's safety if we slash our safety net, where we can extend healthcare in Mississippi if we gut it in Massachusetts. We can cut taxes for corporations today if we raise them on families tomorrow, where we can take care of sick kids if we sacrifice dreamers. We are bombarded with one false choice after another: coal miners or single moms, rural communities or inner cities, the coast or the heartland. As if the mechanic in Pittsburgh, a teacher in Tulsa, and a daycare worker in Birmingham are bitter rivals, rather than mutual casualties of a system forcefully rigged towards those at the top. If parent who lies awake, terrified that their transgender son or daughter will be beaten and bullied at school is any more or less legitimate than a parent whose heart is shattered by a daughter in the grips of an opioid addiction. So here is the answer that Democrats offer tonight. We choose both. We fight for both, because the greatest, strongest, richest nation in the world should not have to leave anyone behind. We choose a better deal for all who call our country home. We choose a living wage and a paid leave, an affordable child. A good education that you can afford. We choose a healthcare system that offers you mercy, whether you suffer from cancer or depression or addiction. We choose an economy strong enough to boast record stock prices and brave enough to admit that top CEOs making 300 times their average worker is not right.
If you didn't watch this speech, you hear the crowd. I think that was good. But one thing that they didn't do is a video check on Mr. Kennedy.
Right.
They're calling it Chapstick Gate.
Yeah.
So if you watch
the chapstick was really apparent. Yeah.
He has like these like glistening lines coming down from the sides of his lips.
Oh, that's sad.
And
that takes away from
people. I mean, here's like some of the comments on Twitter during the State of the Union. They say Marco Rubio had dry mouth during his State of the Union response in 2013. Joe Kennedy has drool mouth. That was from Frank Luntz.
Oh, wow.
And so Chapstick Gate or Drool Gate, I guess, is now something running around. But I think that the interesting thing from his speech was the focus on a lot of issues that I just don't see. You know, when Trump did his speech, immigration reform and taxes and that sort of stuff, it affects us all, right? When, they're talking about transgender parents getting bullied at high school and how the Democrat Party is going to stop that, I just don't see. How is that going to happen?
I don't know. Let's get to our callers. Okay, Mike, you're on Talkback. First of all, thank you for holding, sir. Go ahead.
Well, okay, this is for Harry. If you're running, a bad meth problem, check out Japan and check it out, and you'll find out they have a real problem. But I found out from good sources what was wrong with Nancy and Chuck last night.
All right.
They both wear Depends and had a bad case of diaper rash.
Okay.
Yeah, one more thing, and I'll put this on Joe Kennedy.
All right.
The most discriminated person was in that speech, and is always most discriminated person in the United States. I don't give a damn what color you are, what religion you are. It is a stay-at-home mom. You never hear a politician say, these people, we must, every time it's a coal miner and a single mother. And to me, that really ticks me off.
All right, Mike.
Bye.
Thanks for the call. All right, Aaron, you're up next. Hi, go ahead.
Hey, this is Aaron.
Yes, Aaron, go ahead.
My call.
Yeah, please go ahead. What's on your mind, sir?
I got a little Trapper Mike. I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller. I guess I was kind of like Nancy Pelosi there, got triggered by when Peter said that Trump was only going to be a one-term president.
Well, I don't know, because the effort is certainly there to try to get him to be a one-term president.
Well, that's efforts there for every president.
I know. Yeah. But anyway,
I guess,
go ahead.
you were talking with Emmett. I don't know who could actually take on what Trump has done. I don't think there's any Democrat or Republican that
you bring up a really good point, because and please forgive this if you're a Democrat, I don't think the Democrats have someone that can challenge what he has done yet. And we're getting close here.
Well, I mean, so far the record of challengers has been, do you have any experience? No. Do you have less than any experience? Okay, you're our candidate.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be someone that hasn't been in politics, that has been in media or some other.
Could it be Oprah?
I don't know. Honestly, that's probably the best chance of anyone out there for the Democrats.
That'd be laughable. I think Trump will be in there for 8 years, and then Pence will be in there for another 8 years.
Wow. Okay. Well, you're an optimist. Thanks for the call.
All right.
Appreciate it. Okay. Vince, Susan, and Al, in 1 minute, we'll come back and get your calls. We have one line open at 721-1290. Stay with us. Whee! We're having fun now. Calling KGVO. John? Can you do this? We have a duet.
The musical stylings.
That's right. For your listening and dancing pleasure, ladies and gentlemen. What's that? Oh, I need some music. Oh, never mind. Never mind. All right, it's 9:51. Thanks for joining us on Talkback. We have all four lines humming. Let's get right back to it. Vince, thank you for holding. You're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
Yeah, I just want to bring up a few things. I heard the State of the Union last night. I worked for DOJ. I'm now retired, and I worked in El Paso, Texas from 90 to 96. And I would take Border Highway to the federal building every day to go to. Sylvester Reyes was there. I think he was a sector chief. Decided to, I want to say he called it Bill to hold the line, put a Border Patrol vehicle every quarter mile along the border there with Juarez in El Paso. And from that point on, I was not dodging anybody coming across either at night or during the day. Now, that was in the city, of course, but after that, I went down to El Salvador for 4 years and worked there. And the deportees coming in from Los Angeles, of course, they got the trade of crack cocaine when they were in the States. They brought it back. We didn't have a crack problem in El Salvador in 96, but when I left in 2000, of course, with MS-13, the crack problem exploded. So it would, I understand the countries also would like to be selective in who they get back, but they were trained basically in the States and came back. Then I finished my career in Alpine, Texas, with Presidio, Texas, and Big Bend National Park in my AOR, and in that area, you actually had about 10 feet of the Rio Grande to either get a rowboat to come across or walk across to get into the States. The wall will be effective in areas, and I do agree that drones and electronic surveillance will have to be picked up in areas like Big Bend National Park. But things do make a difference, and the Border Patrol is out there as our first line of defense. But believe me, there are definitely areas that they can cross into. So any type of barrier would probably be appreciated for those ranchers and people living in those communities. And you try to curb the flow of immigration to certain areas where you have other types of surveillance. So that's just my take on the wall and if it would assist or not.
Hey, Vince, call us again sometime, okay?
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks so much. We appreciate it. That's his first-time caller there. Susan, hi, you're on Talkback.
Well, I just thought the whole speech was fantastic, and I especially loved the people that he highlighted, and the one that really was, to me, the most astounding were the two couples that lost their teenage daughters. I just couldn't even believe that the Democrats, most of them didn't even stand for them. I mean, there were a few that did. I think it was appalling to me that when it was announced that the highest employment for blacks and Hispanics has been during the Trump administration, the Black Caucus and the Hispanic Caucus didn't even stand. I mean, that really was astounding to me, and I thought that it was, I campaigned for Ronald Reagan, and I think that Donald Trump did better than Ronald Reagan, honestly.
Right. Thanks, Susan.
Bye.
Appreciate your call. Al, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Yes, I just had a comment on the Kennedy speech.
Yes, sir.
I believe he was at a technology school when he was giving this speech.
Yeah, he was at a tech school.
Did you notice that old car that was in the background?
I did. I don't know what it is, but
did you notice the hood was open?
I did.
Did you notice the doors were open?
I don't remember, actually.
Did you notice, I could be wrong on this, but I thought I saw some life preservers in the back.
Oh, no.
Did you see that or not?
I didn't see that,
okay,
no.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Oh, boy, that was a subtle jab.
Yeah, there you go. All right, we have exactly 2 minutes left of the show. So, Dave, good morning. You're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Good morning. I'm bothered by Donald Trump lies. When he said it's the biggest tax cut in history, I believe that was a major exaggeration. And as far as drugs go, I think we're having more of a problem with heroin than we are with crack cocaine at the moment. And that's coming from a different place in the world. And, they're just exaggerating a lot of the good thing. If Trump would just stick to facts instead of exaggerating all over the place, he'd be much better off.
Because I'm sure that there's never, ever been a president doing their State of the Union address that has ever exaggerated any of their accomplishments during their
Let me ask you this. What fact did you feel was most misleading or misportrayed or not a fact?
We'll talk about the war on ISIS. That was well winding down practically before Trump came to office. I mean, he didn't do anything all that different, and he won the war against ISIS. That's an exaggeration. And the economy, it's been steadily improving since 2009. So I don't see a sudden change.
You don't see a sudden change in the stock market?
Well, the market is
You didn't
separate.
see a sudden change on the ground against ISIS?
There's a sudden I didn't.
Honestly, I don't think that's those two things are not out of the bounds for a claim.
I don't see a sudden change. They were on
you're not in Afghanistan.
They were months away from beating ISIS. And as far as the stock market, it goes up and down. It went down 500 points the other day. So it could drop another 1,000 next week.
Well, it was down 370 yesterday. It's up 200 and some today. So
Is the situation in Syria worse or better than when Trump started?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Well, have you been hearing a lot about it?
Yes, Turkey is moving his army into Syria and is in danger of shooting Americans. So
you should go look at a map of ISIS control in Syria.
Dave, we're out of time. Thanks for the call.
Sure.
Man. Always a pleasure. I'm sorry to cut you off. We have 10 seconds. So tomorrow, Mirdad Kia.
That's right.
All right. And you guys have yourselves a great day, and we will see you tomorrow morning at 6 for Montana Morning. Have a good one.
Do, 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 do.